anyone that would like to address the board tonight? Okay. All right, number 4, Dr. Funk, board member recognition.
Well, it's my great honor tonight. It's a great honor to recognize one of the finest board members that I've had to serve with in the last my 15 years as a superintendent. Mark Schode is a man of integrity, of selfless service, an independent spokesperson on this board and for the community. And the best part about him is he always puts the interests of the students first. And so, Mark, on behalf of your 8 years of service and serving along with you on the board, I would like to present this plaque, and it has a gavel on it for your years of service as well as the chair of the Albert Lea Area School Board. Thank you very much for your service.
Want to say anything? Okay. Celebrating our successes, Mary Jo, Kathy, I think maybe Mike.
Well, I have the honor to celebrate just an awesome partnership in the community. Is that okay? Can I stand, or do you want me to sit? Am I okay? We have, in the entire community, we have great partnerships with businesses, churches, the YMCA, the public library, and I could go on and on. And tonight we're specifically going to thank 8 churches who have completely overwhelmed us with their graciousness, their effort, their energy, and their passion for students in coming up with an idea to say, we know that we have food shelves and we have food for families, but it's not always getting in the homes when it needs to be. So last fall, is Pastor Shane here from Grace? No? Okay. So last fall, Pastor Shane from Grace Lutheran Church, Crane Thames, and Katie Nielsen and I met, and Grace Lutheran Church said, we want to get meals in kids' homes every single weekend of those families that need food. And we're like, well, how do we do that? And so a lot of brainstorming went on, a lot of great ideas. The need was obviously there. How do we outreach? How do we keep it private? Because we have to, data confidentiality is a big thing. And so we came up and said, let's just start. Let's start with the pilot. Conferences were coming up in October. Let's have parents sign up just to let them know that a community church is stepping forward, and if you would like food, they will bring it to school. Actually, I'm going to let Katie Nielsen in a minute explain all the details. But last year we started with 29 students. And Katie gave me the samples and just about forgot them. But so every weekend, our school social workers are putting bags privately in the backpacks of students of the families who have signed up. The GF stands for gluten-free, and then just non-gluten-free bags. And so I'm going to let the school social workers, as they come up, explain the process of what we're doing. But we really wanted to recognize the churches, and we really appreciate that you're here. We appreciate what you're doing for students. Your passion and concern for the students in the community is, we're overwhelmed. And the last I heard is by the end of the year, it will have been about $43,000 that the churches have put together to make this happen. But the individual schools are going to share the successes of what they see happening with the school social workers are here, school counselors, and the principals of the building. So with that, I'm going to start with Hawthorne. So if John Mahal and Katie Nielsen would come up. I'll let you kind of continue the current status of where we're at, and
Okay, right now at Hawthorne started out with 29 kids, and that was last year. And it was just kind of people can sign up. We didn't promote it a whole lot just because we didn't know where we were going to go with it. And then this past year, we got together, the churches decided with area help that we were going to expand. So now all the 4 elementaries and Southwest do it as well. Hawthorne is at 80 students. And like last week, we got 5 more, so I'm assuming it's going to grow and grow as our families are knowing more about it. And Halverson, Amy can speak to that. Halverson is overwhelming with, how many kids do you guys have, Amy?
We have 149.
They have 149 kids at Halverson. And the sacks, last year we did 1 sack. They got the same sack of food every week in their backpack. Coordinating with all the schools we talked to, or with all the churches, we decided we're doing 4 different sacks of food. So every week they get a different, every month they'll get a different, or every Friday they get a different bag. So like this Friday they get this one, next Friday they'll get another bag of food. I'd have to say I have not had 1 complaint. So to me that is a huge success. And I have kids that come to my office and say, do I get my food this week? Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes we've had families like the gluten-free. We had a family, the little girl was gluten-free. Grace Lutheran and Zion were fabulous and came up with a gluten-free bag until their supplier supplied us with a gluten-free sack. And that family was overwhelmed how everybody made accommodations for her little girl. They left our district, so now we don't have that. But on our flyer, what the families get to sign up for, they say if there's any allergies, if there's anything their child can't have. And I think we were the only gluten-free. I don't think any other school has any allergies or anything else right now. But we're making those accommodations, or the churches are making that accommodation, which is fabulous because we're coming into more and more of those kinds of things. It has been awesome working with Zion and Grace Lutheran Church. They have been so accommodating. So I'm so happy to award them tonight with a certificate of recognition. They, like, one time we had a miscommunication about, we didn't have a school on Friday, and so the backpack food actually goes home then on Thursday to make sure the kids actually have food. And within minutes, I had people responding, and I had food there within like an hour. I like to say this, since Christmas is coming and the kids have more time off, the families will be getting 2 sacks. And I'm only going to speak to how Hawthorne doing it like I'm doing. I'm going to send kids a sack home in the backpacks on Thursday and then another sack home on Friday. And how we do it at Hawthorne is my teachers and myself are the only ones that know what kids are getting the food. Because what I do is, since we have 80 kids, every classroom has a reusable sack. And I put, say a classroom has 5 kids. They get 5 bags in the reusable sack. I put it on the classroom door. The teacher during prep or when they have time just go and stick it in the backpack. And like no one has ever said anything. I mean, it's very confidential. The kids, I think they'd all take one home if I'd let them. So it has been a overwhelming success. So I hope to continue. Yeah.
so if you want to call up Zion
Yeah.
and Grace Lutheran Church.
I know Devin. So if my Zion Lutheran people would come on up. And Grace Lutheran people. Over here.
All right, so it's our turn. We are representing Halverson. Tanya Franks, principal at Halverson.
And Amy Browers, the school social worker.
As Katie already shared, Halverson is, actually asked Amy to share, serving 149 students with the backpack program. And Amy can speak a little bit more to how that's looking in our building, very similar to Hawthorne. But obviously being the highest poverty school in the district, that 149 students served is a huge asset to our building and the students in our building, so.
And I do very similar to Katie, Thursday or the day before the last day of the week. Somebody from the church brings the food. I think they have volunteers that help with that as well, which is phenomenal that somebody's willing to take time out during the middle of the day to go bring this food to Halverson. I bring it in on the big rolling cart, bring it into my office, and if I can be uninterrupted for a half hour, I can get the food into the bags, and it's a reusable Hy-Vee grocery bag. Just has the teacher's name, the number of students in their classroom, and the same thing, I kind of deliver it, actually Thursday evening I like to before I leave, so that it's there for the teachers the next morning. I have not had a teacher complain, which I am extremely grateful for, because I know that they're excessively busy, and it's kind of just another thing that they have to do. But they're out there usually during their prep, taking that opportunity to put the food in the lockers. And the students have been so pleased to have this opportunity. I've had students come and ask me personally about how do I get to do this, or they've asked maybe another teacher about it and they've contacted me. We have also gone to putting information about the Food for Backpack program in with information, so when people come to Halverson after they've enrolled, it's automatically information that they get as well, so that way I don't have to kind of single them out once they have become a new person at our school. So I think that'll help the process be a little more smooth that way too. And I am very, very grateful for the churches that are working with Halverson. It's a lot of food.
I was contacted last spring by Jenny Edwin, knowing that Hawthorne had done this program last year, and she said, hey Tanya, what do you think about moving this forward with Halverson? So First Lutheran was our first partner this year, so Jenny and any other rep that you have with you, come on up. And then they have also partnered with Hayward Lutheran, because we have so many students in our building. So if those two individuals would come up for their plaque. I'm staying here for a minute longer. I'm also here to help out Lakeview as well. Lakeview currently is partnering with First Presbyterian Church and Salem Lutheran. Their process looks very similar in their building as well. They are serving 36 students at Lakeview. So if Salem and First Presbyterian would come up. And I have to ask you which one, since I don't.
Salem.
Okay.
I'm not sure where Dean is.
Okay, and do we have a First Presbyterian representative? Okay. Okay.
I'm Diane Schultz, and this is Kim Nelson. We're from Sibley, and so we're, of course, the same thing. I'm gonna let Kim, she does bulk, she does the heavy work, like the other social workers. I'm so grateful for her, for all that she does to get this going and out to kids. So I'm gonna let you talk to how you delivered, how you do those types of things.
Sure. At Sibley School, I go ahead and I'm the one that puts it right in the backpack for the kids. So we do it just a little bit differently. And so you've kind of gotten a feel, I think, for what it looks like in the school, but I want to also talk a little bit about all of the work and the wonderful flexibility and support that the churches have given us. We started out piloting it at Sibley thinking we'd start off with maybe 20, 25 students. And again, to make it available to everybody at the beginning of the year during those preschool conferences, we just offered it, if you sign up, you know, we're going to provide the food for you. And so we ended up with now 62 students. So it was 3 times what we thought our initial need might have been. So that shows you what the need is and how grateful these families are. And
is, I mean, when we started, we were looking, going, okay, how are we gonna go through this and narrow it down to 20? And again, we are so grateful and blessed to have Ascension Lutheran step up to the plate and provide us with those 62 meals each week. We are so blessed to have you. So Ascension, why don't you come up?
And they also have like a rotating list of volunteers that they have coordinated with.
so much for your
Thank you.
Hi, Chris Dibble, Principal of Southwest. A very large group of flowers got delivered to the office today for Steph Engbertson. It's her anniversary, so I'm guessing I lost out to an anniversary. We got Steph, so I'm by myself up here. But Southwest currently has 39 students that we're serving. We assume we're going to get a bunch more coming up as the program continues, but Steph Engbertson went into it and said, let's see what we can do for our students. We signed up at conferences. Little different delivery program for us. We actually have our level 3 EBD program students get locker numbers, and working with Steph in her 4th hour skills for EBD kids class, they actually deliver it to the lockers. They get a key or they get a combination. Steph helps them deliver, so it still remains anonymous, but we're actually having kids serve the students that we have. And our partner is our great neighbors to the west there, United Methodist. We have Matt and John in the back if you want to come up and receive the plaque. Thanks for everything you do for us. It's been a great partnership over on the southwest side of town.
And with that, we just want to thank you very much. One of the church people said, we're kind of busy. Do we have to stay for the whole meeting? No, we just want to get you something. You probably have more work to do, we know. But this fine gentleman up here, I don't know who you are, but he said, well, if I just want to donate so I can help with some bags, I'm like, I don't know what it costs. So about $4 a bag, so we'll take your money. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, Administrator Mary Jo and everyone for getting it started, the churches and the schools for going forward, and the amazing transformation just from Hawthorne, from the 29 up to the 80. It'll be interesting to see next year how well it's doing and how many more students we're able to help. Thank you, everyone. Okay, looking for approval for today's agenda. So moved by Mark. Is there a second? Yep. Neil, second.
Mr.
Yep.
Chair, I would like to request a few items removed from the consent items, please. 7.1, 7.6, 7.7. Thank you.
So then we will make 7.1 to 7.91, I think is how we will do that. And 7.6 to 7.92, I think that's probably okay. And then 7.7 to 7.93. Okay.
One other thing tonight, I got an email from Paul Durbon this afternoon. Nobody has had an opportunity with him to sit down with him and go over his rider, so I would like to sit down and talk with him tomorrow before we approve that tonight. So I would suggest that we hold off on that until January 7th, and we'll just add that to the reorganizational meeting at that point.
And that would be under the 7.1, is that what you're doing?
Correct, yep.
Jill?
I believe that would be now 7.91.
You want to leave that 7.91? Or just remove that one? Yes.
That's part of that item that was removed.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So that's what we will do then.
But 7.91 will still be part of the agenda because it has more than just that in that, correct? Okay.
Yeah, everything else will be, yep. Anything else? Okay, got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose the same. Okay, then, looking for a motion, then we've got 7.92 and 7.93, which is 7.6, 7.7. We'll discuss those, I'm guessing, after we do the consent. So a motion for the rest of the consent items.
So moved.
Got a motion? Second. A second? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Okay, motion carries. Okay, so 7.92 then.
9-1.
7.91, is that the 7.1? Okay.
I was wondering on the interim activities director. Now I know that we're putting it off for a future meeting, but why is that under an extra duty rider overload rather than an independent contract?
The purpose is it's only an interim position, so he wouldn't have to be resigning his teaching job to do it. He would still be under the teacher unit. Basically, it's job protection for him. So that's the rationale there.
Okay, and then it's my understanding that even though he's a teacher, he'll be leaving the teaching duties to be that full-time interim.
He would be a teacher on special assignment.
Okay. And then what is the plan for filling in those duties for this semester as far as finding a qualified teacher mid-year?
As the board has been notified, we have posted for a math teacher.
Okay. And is that, our prospects usually pretty good mid-year to find a candidate?
They're better mid-year than they are, mid-quarter. Colleges are getting out at this point in time, and some mid-year graduates potentially could apply for the position.
Thank you. And then my other question had to do with I don't know if I should call it a resignation or a retirement, because I think we had been notified of a resignation of the Executive Director of Administrative Services, but it's listed as retirement. So I had asked a question earlier today, but maybe there wasn't time to get a response back. What is the impact on the district when it's a retirement rather than a resignation, and what are those pieces that are required for the district to offer retirement?
It's a retirement because he has met his retirement obligations for the school district, and I don't have the information all in front of me, but because he has met the obligations for retirement and for severance purposes, he is submitted it as a retirement rather than as a resignation, so that he now qualifies for those benefits that he's qualified for from his years of service in the district.
And are those requirements reflected in the current contract that the employee is under generally, or are they listed some other general place that covers a multitude of employees?
No, it's his right to retire as an employee once he is earned completed the requirements of his contract.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had regarding that. Thank you.
Actually, so I think I just read an email wrong earlier today. So the math position is posted currently?
Yes.
Okay, for some reason I was thinking it was going to get posted by the end of the week. Sorry about that. And then what is the plan if we struggle with getting one? Be long-term sub, or what would we be thinking
We would,
there?
the first option would be to look at talking to the math department about potentially overloads. And the other thing is we have a math specialist in the district who does other things for us. So we have options available if need be.
Anything else? Should we vote on each one individually then, since we pulled them out, I would imagine, individually? Okay, so looking for a motion then for 7.91 for approval or disapproval, for approval? So moved. Got a motion, looking for a second? Second. Okay, Angie second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Okay. All right, 7.92, which would be the Executive Director of Administrative Services, Master Agreement.
I guess the comments I had regarding that were that even though we are, tasked with approving the agreement, I guess in future cases, I would like to be able to be provided that agreement rather than having to ask for it. I did ask for that agreement today and was provided it this afternoon. Thank you. And I also asked about the posting for that position. And it's my understanding that the position was only posted internally, and it appears for less than a 48-hour period. And to me, I don't know that that benefits the district. I would like to see in a position of this level to have an external posting rather than just an internal posting. I believe that a lot of times there are, and this is nothing against the person that is scheduled to go into that position, but just in general, as far as postings go, I believe it's a good idea to have these kind of positions posted externally to get our largest pool of qualified candidates, and I believe that that would benefit the district. The other comment I have, because we weren't provided numbers, so when I asked for the numbers today, I did receive them, thank you, and it appears that it's quite a substantial increase in pay and benefits. And is it my understanding, so it looked like from the information that we had been given that that the new employee would be moving in at the departing employee's salary and benefit level, and that's what it appears to be after we got the numbers today. So I'm wondering, well, I guess my comment would be that I don't know that it benefits the district in bringing in a new person to a position at the same level as a person that's been in the position for several years and has negotiated salary up. I think we have some elevated administrative salaries and benefit packages. This one in particular is 129 moving up to 131, 580 plus benefits. And I think that when we are increasing levies to our taxpayers, that we could possibly find some room in our administrative salary and benefits negotiation to save even a little bit more money down the line for the benefit of the district and taxpayers. Thank you.
Ashley, you want to pop up those slides? So I received a number of inquiries today from Jill on this. So I decided to prepare this for the board, as I figured we may have a few questions on this. So currently, we are organized as follows on the left. Yep.
I don't think that it was appropriate to say who you received the inquiries from.
She just said she contacted me, Jill, Angie. Okay.
I know, it seemed a little snide.
You're telling me that was snide.
No, the comments seem that way. I would never say that it wasn't individual. It didn't seem, sorry.
I should not have used that term. I couldn't think of one on the fly. It seemed disrespectful.
So since I've received a number of inquiries on this from you, Jill, and thanks for asking that, and thank you for requesting the contracts. I thought they were sent out on Friday. So, the administrative reorganization. Currently, we are organized as follows on the left. We have a director of K-5 programs. We have a director of 612 programs. That's an error. Both of them require an administrative license. And we have a director of administrative services, which also requires an administrative license. How I'm proposing that we be reorganized is we go to an executive director of teaching and learning. One of the concerns I have as superintendent in the district is, since we have a director of K-5 and we have a director of 612, we become siloed when we're talking K-12 alignment. We're currently the only district in the Big Nine that does not have a overall director of teaching and learning. So I'm proposing we move to that role. And I would say our two current directors are focused on the operational level. The reason that we want an executive director is they're focused strategically on long-term as well as operational issues for the district. Coordinator of curriculum and instruction would be a teacher on special assignment who could do a lot of the administrative requirements that are currently required of our two directors, and freeing up the executive director of teaching and learning for more focus on curriculum and instruction. We would maintain with our director of administrative services, which of course requires an admin license, and our cost estimate by reorganizing in this manner is saving the district $25,000. Next slide, please. So current salary comparisons, where do we get these numbers? The executive director of teaching and learning, the proposed salary, the base salary on it's $129. I think there's an incentive to get a superintendent license. Neither one of the individuals have a superintendent license at this point. The Big Nine salary average ranges from $143,000, which is in Owatonna and Rochester, to I believe there's a district at $122. Owatonna's person has been there 2 years. Rochester's person has been there 6 months. So that is how we've arrived at the $129 average for the salary. Now, comparison for the executive director of administrative services. Currently, the current director for the HR component of their position gets $119,000. The last year's Big Nine salary average for HR directors alone was $123,000. The technology component of the position is a current stipend at $10,000. We don't have a separate director of technology like the other Big Nine districts do. Their average salary is $111,000. So our current proposed salary is $129,000, what this current director is getting, and you can see the combined salaries of the technology and HR directors and the rest of the Big Nine at over $240,000. So that is kind of the why we arrived at where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings to mind that we several years ago did have at the district level a director of teaching and learning, and then the new position was created for the K-5, separating them into K-5 and 612. So, and so again, I'm not questioning the realignment. It's realigning us to where we were before, except that it appears that there'll be a teacher on assignment receiving about half the compensation to assist this position, which actually we're not on yet, but I guess since it's then there, we can talk about it. But my main points would be the starting at the salaries that high, and especially for new persons in the positions to be slotted in at where the averages of the Big Nine are. And then it appears to be about, if I've done my math correctly, about a 23% increase on package for both employees. And for those reasons, I would not be approving this, as well as the not posting it externally.
when you say the administrative license, so does Jim has his superintendent's credentials now, right?
He does.
Okay, and Kathy and Mary Jo do not.
They do not, but they have incentive in their new contracts to get one. They would receive $1,000 stipend a year if they received one, if they had one.
And how long does that take usually? I mean, depends on how long you work, how hard you work at it, I guess.
A year.
Okay. Is that the traditional route, or is that the use of experience route, the 1 year? Okay.
How long has Kathy Niebuhr been an administrator in our district?
In license since 2014, in other capacities I think she was a civil rights investigator for 6 years. She's been a negotiator for how many years, Kathy? 10 years negotiations, other side, but that experience. The tech integration from her media specialist position, I mean, clearly great qualifications.
Okay, I look for a motion then.
Here, I'll speak up real quick.
Go ahead, Angie.
It does seem like a big jump, but the things added seem like a big jump too. So it's kind of hard to kind of know, like, I guess, what to think here. One thing I did notice, we got these contracts today, so I was kind of trying to make sense of it, that both these contracts together would constitute over like a new teacher, but then again, if we say the $25,000, I mean, you got to look at it. There's many different ways to look at this. So I guess on this one, I'll just have to trust the research that you guys have done on this and what's appropriate.
I was actually wrong. There we go. And I do recall when we had one curriculum director, there's been several names, we also had a director of technology, Mr. Botarvis, did a very fine job. And so there has been quite a bit of combinations of positions over the years, because now I'm assuming Kathy would also have the responsibilities of technology coordinator, for which she's very qualified, by the way, because she did have a similar position a few years back. So my as I have said before, my Hayward math suggests that we had 3 positions and now we have 2, and that should realize a savings. I share your concerns with the size of the salaries, but as a former teacher, naturally I would, but they are consistent with the going rate for those positions, so I guess I can't contest that.
I guess my view on the going rate is the averages when we compare averages of salaries for government employees, to me it's a little bit of a catch-22 there, because I don't know if it really does us a benefit by doing that, because we raise our salary, then the next city needs to raise their salaries. Everybody's just raising salaries. And why? Because everybody else is raising salaries. To me, that's not a good enough reason to raise salaries, and that's just my personal opinion.
Is there also will Kathy receive anything extra for the technology? That's just part of it. Is that something that has to go into the name so we don't split it out again or anything like that?
We changed Jim's title. He used to be, when we hired him, he was the director of human, and then we gave him the actual $10,000 stipend. Administrative Services covers it.
Okay, I would look for a motion then for the approval of the Executive Director of Administrative Services Master Agreement. Got a motion's made, is there a second? Okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the Executive Director of Administrative Services Master Agreement signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the same sign. Okay, that passes 4-1. 7.93, which is the approval of the Alberta Schools Executive Director of Teaching and Learning's Master Agreement. Discussion.
I would have the same comments that I had just made since we were talking about it ahead of time. So basically, only an internal posting. This one looks about 72 hours. And then the rate of increase, the rate of salary, it appears that there'll be a teacher assisting with about a half, receiving about half of the compensation. So I believe that this is too high.
Was this 2-year agreement, Mike? I know it's in there, but I'm trying to remember what number it would be under. Okay.
And I believe previously when we had the one director, I don't think that they had a teaching assistant with them. So I'm understanding that's for grant writing, that kind of thing.
Yes, and in all honesty, the previous director was overwhelmed. And so that's why we broke it into the two positions that we did previously. Just the workload has just increased with the mandatory reporting and that we have. And so this is an attempt to structure us so we're right sized for what we're facing.
Any other discussion? If not, I would look for a motion to accept or to approve the Alberta Schools Executive Director of Teaching and Learning and Association Master Agreement. Got a motion and a second. Take a vote on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Okay, passes 4-1. Okay, going to number 8, which is reports. Superintendent Funk.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Okay,
Last month, or a few weeks ago, when we certified the levy, we had the report from Springstead on the bond sale. And the MDE has been able to get that on the books for the upcoming tax year, so it should be reflected, though it probably was not on their tax statements. I'm sure it was not at this point, but it will be reflected in a cost savings to our taxpayers of $58,820. They were able to get it done pretty quickly. So that's a good news story. As I mentioned previously, we are forecasting a cost savings for the realignment to be about $25,000. And last month, I talked about the Hammer Field permitting issues with the city, and we've been approved and we're good to go. And the bid results for Hammer Field are actually opening tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. Today we went live with our anti-bullying reporting. I think we talked about it on social media, and I believe it's on our district website. So students can anonymously report an incident, and it goes, once they go online to report it, it will go right to the building's office for investigation. So that's a good news story. Or if a kid goes home and says, "Mom, this happened at school today," then mom or dad can then go onto the website and do it. And then the other thing is we are working with the company to have an app ready for mobile devices after the holidays. That's a little bit more of a technical challenge on how we have to get, because people have to be able to report it just to the Albert Lee School, and so they're working on getting the app ready for that. But that's another good thing for keeping our schools safe and having kids be comfortable reporting what they're seeing out there. So that's a positive.
I ask a question
Yeah.
quick? This might sound like a silly question. Is there a way to like test it or practice? Because you're telling me about it, and I'm like, oh, I want to go try it, but I have nothing to report.
Right.
So I'm thinking the kids might. Is there a way to like?
They can do a test, and then it'll just come across as a test.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know if they get feedback. I know they were testing it in the district office before it went live, and they were with the company, and it was, I mean, we were receiving the reports.
Okay.
So that's, you know, or you could
So
say,
if you get
or
a test from me, that'll be okay.
if you put your name on it, but otherwise we won't know it's you.
Okay. All right.
Yep. So, but that's a good news story for the district. And the best news story, I think, is go ahead to the next slide. And I think there was an article in the paper on it. I think I just saw it today. Albert Lee High School was only one of 5 high schools in the state of Minnesota to be recognized by the College Board by earning recognition on the AP Honor Roll. Kudos to the student, staff, and administration at Albert Lee High School. And I also want to really thank the school board for your support on this initiative, because our kids are able to take AP tests at no cost. And so we have a number of students who can take the test, and we are starting to see our scores go up on the test, and that is why we are one of the schools recognized by the College Board. So that's a really good news story for the district. That's it. Thank you.
I have a question about the app as well. So it is anonymous reporting. If it ever becomes a problem, is there any kind of like an email attached to it or anything to research? Totally anonymous, nothing attached?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's, school board member reports. Start with Neil.
A report on screen, which is, yes, high-tech, which is a result of one of the many committees I'm on. This is the Chamber of Commerce Business Ed Committee, and there are programs out there already in existence that deal with something that is dear to all of us, and that is a working relationship with our local businesses who are desperately trying to find qualified workers. And there's this is from the, scroll down, I can't remember the name of the organization that supports this. It's a department, one of the Minnesota departments of, there it is, Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry, and you can go to their website and you can find this brochure. And it's called Pipeline, and essentially it's an opportunity for businesses to contact this department and set up programs so that they can invite our students into their businesses and work as sort of apprentices and get paid for it. The businesses can get funded by the state to support their training of anybody, young or old, who wants to get a foothold in whatever field it is. And you can see quite a number of occupations and pathways that I mentioned there. And the sort of careers, very good, high-paying, satisfying careers, none of which, or very few of which, require four-year college education. So we're constantly looking for avenues where we can form some kind of an arrangement with our businesses, with the vocational school, and anybody else who wants to promote vocational education. And that is a program called Pipeline. Also met with the Education Foundation, which I've gotten them to agree is a Super Boosters Club for District 241. Originally, the foundation was established to assist in completing some of the tasks that perhaps weren't included in the funding for the new high school in the year 2000, so that's how long the foundation has been around. And been a lot of people involved in it, and we have some excellent members, and it's we need to rein them in sometimes because they want to raise millions of dollars, which is fine. But they're a very active bunch, and they are also extremely interested in vocational education, vocational training. End of report.
Thank you. I attended the Family Services Collaborative and the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Other Drugs Task Force, and talking about sustainability for both of those programs, as well as possible larger office space for the Family Services Collaborative facilitator. Thank you.
I have nothing to report.
Committee reports.
Mark, you want to say anything about mail?
So the Mayo Clinic, local Mayo Clinic, is going to make a large donation to the scoreboard, but we need to wait till the bids are opened. So more to come on that. So there's your first donation.
Thank you. Last night you get the big one. Gigi.
Well, we have a band and orchestra concert tonight at 7 o'clock. So if you get out of here before then. And then last week we also had a choir concert, which was great. And the choir is having a great time because we have caroliers and chorale going around the community and singing at all different sorts of places like nursing homes and around town. So that's a great thing that's going on. And then we also just have finals coming up, so wish us all luck. Good luck. Thank you.
I have a couple things. First, last November 4th on Sunday, I had a phone call from Tim Waltz's somebody, and they wanted him to come down. He's our representative in District 1 at the in D.C., but now he's our governor-elect. And so I got a hold of Mike to see if he could come down, and he did come down. And he went to a couple schools, went to a couple classrooms, met with some teachers, and I tell you, he's gonna. I think he's gonna be a real plus for education. So I'm really looking forward to that. Let's see, we have a Southwest Middle School concert tomorrow night at 6. I've sent out an email to everybody about what's going on, and I got something back from Hawthorne that said, thanks so much for the needed bathroom remodels. I didn't know nothing about that, but they were happy there. They're definitely an improvement. Plus, they said at Hawthorne, they've already seen great improvement in the reading fluency due to their new phonics program at the elementary level. We, at our staff meeting at Southwest the other month or whatever it was, we brought up if we could have the suggestion of having staff development more than just at the beginning of the year, more throughout the year. And so we brought that up at the ALEA. They wanted to know how to move forward with that, and we really didn't know how to move forward with that. I ran into Mike when Waltz was here, and I actually talked with him about that, and so we got that discussion going, and we hope we can try to get that figured out. The ALEA, is my last point. We're in the we just finalized our negotiations teams already. Once they're going to be getting ready, talked with Dave and Wendy, the top 2 negotiators. They informed me that they look forward to working with the board and the administration during negotiations to continue making Alberley schools one of the most desirable districts in the state. And that's it.
Is it going to be a problem that Kathy knows all your tricks?
Yeah, that could be. It's going to be interesting. It'll be fun.
Thank you, Al.
Yep.
All right. Curriculum and development, staff development discussion. Mary Jo, Kathy.
As Al just mentioned, the teachers and administrators have been talking staff development quite a bit this year, and Al and I have talked about it. And as a matter of fact, last week I got an email from, and I shared you the information from the instructional coaches on staff development, and we haven't put the calendar completely together yet for next year. And so we thought we would just come and share some of the challenges we have as we're trying to plan the calendar here, and just some ideas as we move forward to see how we can continue to support our teachers and administrators in the best way possible. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you. I think over the last year, we've heard a lot of from teachers, especially via Learning Team, about the opportunities professional development has brought their way. But as Al mentioned, one of the concerns is as we increase student days, those days typically come away from staff development. I think our Learning Team has been extremely proactive from the standpoint of teachers really being a part of determining what kinds of staff development they need, they desire. I think we've worked really closely together. That team is jointly administrators and teachers with some big item staff development opportunities, whether it be presenters coming in or staff attending outside the district. But I think one of the things we hear that is most valuable is their time together in district, to hear whether it be from this year Amy Young from the Department of Ed for English language learners, the great phonics training that they've had multiple sessions with. But we know many of those training days take them out of their classroom. And I think what you received today was from the Learning Team. Julie Eaton did a really nice job of gathering information from lots of teachers across the district, and I know Southwest was very strong in writing some items of support for considering some days throughout the year for professional development where students are not in classrooms with substitute teachers, and teachers are planning for that day, thinking about that day, worrying about that day, and then trying to learn some new ideas and thoughts and collaboration with their colleagues. So as we look at the calendar moving forward, we have tried to work jointly as to what that would look like. And teachers have asked, and just as Al said, how do we move that forward? Well, we move that forward here by having those discussions in the next couple of weeks.
So really, as we start planning the calendar for next year, we're here asking for the board to consider either 1 to 2 days of additional professional development days for teachers in lieu of student contact days. So right now, we have 173 days for secondary, 172 for elementary, and then decreasing that by 1 to 2 days.
For the benefit of folks who aren't here, the board received an email today that was put together by teachers, and really they talk about how we're currently structured right now is, and I think a lot of school districts do this similarly, so we do a lot of staff development at the beginning of the year, and so we get a good blast of it. And then this is a great initiative, and then we go on to the we go on to the school year and we get busy, and then if we want to continue the initiative, what we typically have to do, since we don't have days for staff development really built in throughout the year, we have to pull teachers out of class and we have to sub them out, and then we bring in the trainer and we do the training, and then they go back to class. And so there's a couple costs involved with that. There's the substitute cost, and then there's the opportunity cost of having a substitute in class that is not the same quality as a teacher. So what, I think a couple years ago we had 2 more, I think they were flex staff development days where we weren't sure what they would be. And we took those out at the guidance of the board. And so what I'm hearing from teachers and from the administrators is we would like to have 1 or 2 of those back and have significant planned days during the year where we could do focus things with those days. And so we're having this conversation now, so we're not having it, in a couple of months with the board, with a calendar in front of you, and just to gain your thoughts on it, and from a philosophical, and just see what your thoughts are as we start to put this thing together.
Yeah, I think an example I can give is you've heard a lot about the phonics training as we're realizing all right, we need more explicit phonics training for teachers and then providing more explicit phonics training for students. And so we provided the professional development this summer, but we really needed the follow-up. So we did follow-up last month, and we'll be doing it again in February. And because we don't have any PD days in between these times now, we're having to sub out. And so I know buildings have requested sub dollars, significant dollars to sub out teachers so we can be working with that trainer when she's here. And the feedback she really gave just last month was great feedback, and we're already seeing a difference in instruction just in the last few weeks since she's been here. And the same thing will happen in February, but we don't have any PD to work with her. So again, we'll be subbing out and pulling kids out of class or teachers out of classrooms with subs, and then of course there's a sub shortage that we're dealing with as well. So that's kind of the reality of why we're asking for additional professional development days for teachers.
Any discussion?
We aren't planning on taking any action on this. No, just a discussion. I will totally wholeheartedly concur that taking teachers out of classrooms, subbing them out, is a horrible arrangement. On the other hand, I like a lot of student contact days with teachers. In fact, I believe I was the one that that moved in that direction a couple of years ago. So I would like to have some time to think about this and talk to some people and to see if we can, because you're absolutely right. I look at the sub list every day, and I find, there's maybe 2 or 3 teachers that are gone, but there's about 5 that are subbed out of their classes every day, and so they need to find a sub for one period, and it's a nightmare for whoever has to line up the subs, and that's just not a good arrangement. And if I were that teacher, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't want to be subbed out of my class, maybe 1, maybe 2 periods a day, and then I'm out of sync with the rest of the period. So, yeah, that's not a good plan. I'd like some time to think about this and talk to people.
I guess I'm glad that we're talking about it early too, so thank you for that, and thank you for the new board members for being here, and because you're going to be following up on this next year as well. And I haven't had time to read through the email that we got today, but maybe, I don't know if it included any piece of this, but so we're basically thinking about swapping out a student instruction day for just a staffed professional development day. What are the teachers and your own outlooks as far as how that balances out for student overall learning and making that swap?
As we talk about looking at the number of days teachers are out of the classroom with a sub, I think the concern is from the teachers as well as Neil, and as Al had mentioned, is how many times can we subject a teacher to planning all those extra days versus what the needs are for phonics. This year it's been 2 days?
In the beginning of the year.
In the beginning of the year. Then they also look at a grade level meeting. Then they might also be looking at if there are art, music, science, FIED, the new standards, subbing out a day like that. And so what the teachers are saying is these are all really great things that we should be working on. It is just hard to plan for 1, much less 2, 3, 4 days, and do an adequate job at all of them. So what they're asking for is, could we do 1 more throughout the year to lessen some of that burden on them? So is there a loss for that day for the students in the classroom? Potentially, sure.
Al, do you have any thoughts from the ALEA perspective or the teacher perspective on that?
Yeah, we've talked at our Southwest, we had a staff meeting where they initially, I think it was Kristen came up and talked, because she's what is Kristen, the IL person or whatever?
Krista Oneman.
Krista, not Kristen, Krista Oneman.
Yeah.
Yeah, she talked, and then the whole, our staff said, yeah, this is a good idea, and would you please, they asked Corey Olson, who's our building rep, to bring that forward to the ALA Exec Council, and I explained to Corey, I don't really know what we could do there, and that's why I talked with you about, and like Kathy just said, I don't know how you move forward with something unless is it a contract. It's not really a contract issue because we don't do the calendar. We just give input at times. And so this is something that they're interested in, but don't really know how to move forward and discuss it.
And I guess I can see, it's obvious the benefit to the staff. What would be some of the benefits to the student of doing it this way?
Better teachers? Better instructional strategies. I think when we just look at the phonics piece, having all elementary on the same page, same academic language, same expectation. We talk about pacing as we got to move at a fast pace. We can't teach phonics slow because we don't read slow. When we had all teachers together this summer, it was incredible training. It gets a little bit fragmented when we're putting a trainer in a building and trying to work with teachers, pulling them out, trying to have her other teachers come and watch as she's in other rooms. It's just not as effective. And so I think in today's educational environment, to be the best teachers we can be, using the best instructional practices, it's bringing us all together to move forward with really strong instructional practices. And I think that's what our belief is the most powerful person in a child's life for educational change in the school is the teacher. And so we have to put as many tools as we can in our teachers' pockets. And I think this is how we'll get there.
It sounds like with initiatives, especially the phonics and stuff, that this is something that would be really valuable, so they don't have to get the sub and it's not all chaotic, so I can just be at the training. Like as a teacher myself, and I hope that all staff development is great and, you know what I mean, it's necessary, and it looks like this stuff absolutely is. So if we do move forward, I hope that we make sure that it's all just like that. And I think usually it is, but I know sometimes like, oh, we got to fill a staff development day. What are we going to do? Right? So as long as it's we're thinking it through and making sure that this is needed, this here because of this, and just being very conscious about that decision and making sure it's very beneficial, then that probably would benefit the students because they would be better trained teachers in different areas.
Totally agree with you on that. We're not about to go back to the cookie cutter model of, okay, let's put 600 people in an auditorium and do PD. It is about what are the needs. And really, phonics was driven by data of, our kids don't know phonics. We need to solve that. So what do? We train and bring in excellent people to really do that. The other thing we haven't talked about is Minnesota standards continue to change. So right now we have PE who has pretty extensive new standards, and unless they have time to really align with their instructional practices and meeting the new standards, it's not going to happen. And same thing with art and music is working right now. Science, we're still waiting to hear if they're bringing in the next gen standards for next year. So the science standards will be moving forward. So there's always that moving cycle of keeping up with the new standards. And that's part of this too, that it takes time to really work through those and figure out what are the most essential practices and standards to really get that mastery for kids to attain them. So.
And I think kudos to the teachers who have been really super creative and trying to fill those slots. As I know I see Danny Bryant's emails come out at the high school, and teachers are very responsive to covering for another teacher who we couldn't fill. I know our art, music, phy-ed teachers looking at the standards at the secondary level, 612. they know how much the money is there. We're pretty transparent at Learning Team. How much money do we have to spend during the year to do this work? And I have some teachers who are adamant, you're not subbing me out. I'll do the work, but I'm not going to be out of my classroom. So they've kind of got a compromise that they could be the cost to pay them curriculum writing pay for their time is more expensive, almost twice as much as a sub, but there isn't as much money to go around. So I've had several art music teachers in Fayette say, I'll do the 16 hours of work for the 8 hours of pay because the work needs to be done and I'm not going to be out of my classroom. So I think they're trying really hard to accommodate their time and energy and the work to be done. So I think they've been really creative, and I will say, we've all sat through staff development that hasn't been as effective as it should be, but I think you're hearing this from the teachers more and more, that we've done some really good, effective things, some really quality things, and they've driven a lot of that through their building staff development teams as well as the district learning team. And one of the things they've asked me over the last year is, how do we do this? And I say, you have such a great opportunity with the teacher at the board table. Have them say something. And I think that, as Al said, it's like, yeah, is that really how this works? We really don't know how to move forward. So thanks to the ALEA for bringing it forward, and we keep encouraging them to have that be part of their message when they sit here, is the value. So if you've heard them, when they report, talk about the value of their staff development, that's really, that is coming from them, not from us per se, from all of us, I guess.
One thing I'd be interested in seeing is, we like to compare ourselves to the Big Nine, what the other Big Nine schools do for professional development days and things like that. Be helpful to take a look at for calendar.
I suppose, like the Big Nine, how many student instructional days they have too, that'd be an interesting comparison at the same time.
You can usually dig up that information if you're patient enough to go to their websites, and
That's what they have us for.
yeah, I've been there.
Any other discussion? Thanks for the information. You're good.
And when will we be looking at the calendar for next year, do we anticipate?
I would say, as soon as we get that new board seated, maybe their first regular meeting, we'll probably have at least a first look at it.
All right, safe and healthy schools. Is there anything? Good luck tonight. And on your tests. Okay, if not, Lori, daycare application, efficient and effective operations.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Funk, for your consideration would be approval to move ahead with the application process for Rule 3 through the Department of Human Services regarding a licensed child care program. This would involve the 2 infant rooms, 2 toddler rooms. Those are the 2 components that would be under this Rule 3 licensure that would be serving potentially 44 children in total in those 2 categories. Now, regarding the preschool age component, that would actually be under what's called license exempt through school readiness. So the preschool component, we would not need to have our application under what's called Rule 3. The preschool component we are estimating would serve 20 preschoolers. So that would be under the whole concept of the daycare program, it would be serving a total of 64 children. We have done some analysis quite a bit. We have received the assistance of First Children's Finance. Landon McKay has met with us and assisted us in running some financial scenarios. And with these particular daycare rooms that we're proposing, we've put together some estimates based on staffing. We would be looking at actually It'd be a total of 19 staff positions. And the rates of pay that we were running in, the childcare rates that we're running in the scenario would be similar to local childcare center rates. The infant rate was very similar, just slightly more, and the same for the toddler program. So we're running those scenarios just to analyze the financials. Year one was, in the scenario we've run, is just a slight deficit, with year two a break even. And the reason of that is the first 2 months we're just running a hypothetical that not as many of our slots will be filled until we get fully operating. It could be right at the get-go we'll have all our slots filled. But we were running that in that fashion just to be conservative. Also with the scenario we were looking at, there would be a need for purchasing equipment for the startup, and that equipment estimate is $50,000. That's when we ran the operational estimate, was not including the equipment. We're kind of dealing with setting aside a separate financial for equipment. Some of that would be funded with existing, it's a fund balance in this particular reserve that this program would be run in. It's in the community service fund, and the rest of that equipment cost, the general fund would have to cover initially for that investment. What we're looking at for this program with regs for infants and toddlers, the rooms that they'd be served in have to be on the main level due to regulations. So there are 2 rooms in Brookside that's on the first floor that we would be proposing to utilize the space for. So we'd just be moving some of our programming around at Brookside. And so basically, since with Rule 3, it can take up to 6 months for to receive approval. And so I'm asking the board tonight if they're comfortable with giving me approval for us to submit our application and at least getting that process going, since it can take, they say, between 3 to 6 months for us to receive our license.
Just an additional comment or two. So the rooms we're looking at are where Head Start currently is. And so I think Lori and Jenny met with the Head Start folks here in the building. And we have, since it's infants, we have to be on the ground level. There are a couple rooms available that we can offer for Head Start, and another room for potentially office space that they seem very interested in. So we think that it benefits them and it benefits us if we can keep them here in the same building. So that's what we are exploring moving forward.
And those spaces would be on the second floor then?
I am very enthusiastic about this program and wholeheartedly move to approve.
Lori, you'd mentioned last time, I think, just briefly, where would the, oh, I didn't ask for that, though. You gotta wait till I ask for it, don't you? We'll get more discussion for you. Just a couple questions. You talked a little bit about the pay rates on that. Where do they fall again? Was it under community ed rates, or how was that last time you mentioned, last meeting, the staff?
Yes, we did run some pay rates that are specific to this program, but they would be like, they would be added to the community ed listing per se. We would update that listing to incorporate these positions.
Okay.
That's under the community ed umbrella.
Registration to be through community ed and things like that under the umbrella?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the way it sounded when you said in year 2 we'd be pretty much neutral with revenues, that's basically stating that when we are full, we would be budgeting around a neutral budget with both then, right?
Right, break even.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I wholeheartedly think this is an excellent idea. I do want to bring up, last time we spoke, we brought up like a SAC program, school age childcare, so I'm kind of glad that Dennis is here too. It was mentioned that the Y has an excellent program after school. I wholeheartedly agree with that as well. However, we don't have anything in the morning. When my son was younger, I struggled with that. I know that other families in the district struggle with that. So if that is something that we could partner with an entity to provide, I know it's different than this motion, or we could provide ourselves at some point, that would be fabulous. I think that I'd love for the district to look into that.
I think we mentioned this to Dennis, and I kind of waved him up here. So if the board, Dennis could briefly respond to that.
The point with the early morning before school has been an issue ever since I've been here. One of the big issues is the transportation piece. So if there is a way within the school district to house it right at the schools, that would be the way to do it. As you look at the licensing for the Rule 3, if you're going to do any before school child care, probably make sure to fall under, because then there would be dollars hopefully available from DHS for the kids that need it. If you're not licensed, we're considered a licensed, unlicensed daycare facility so that we can get dollars from DHS to serve the children. They've added a few more rules with it, but I think if you're going to do it, go in depth to it. And then the whole issue with childcare right now is transportation. So whatever avenues you look at have to take that into effect. And that's why, as you look at it, the best might be to go right to the schools in the morning. Because to try to bring the kids to the Y at 6 in the morning or to another entity at 6 in the morning and then turn around and have to bus them right away again anyway, you're losing a lot of quality time for the kids.
When we met with Landon McKay of First Children Finance, he did bring up that concept of the school age before school latchkey type service, because there are a number of districts that utilize that. Isn't it kind of like an additional funding stream that helps support the overall daycare program? So I mean, I think as time goes on, that is something we could explore. The fact that the financials worked out quite well with just the daycare for the infant, toddler, preschool, that was very encouraging. That even just with that arrangement, we should be able to break even.
And are we looking at a possibility of utilizing high school students as part of the staffing of the daycare?
That would be potentially an option, as the schedule, depending on what the schedules could work out for. So that is something that could be explored.
Okay, any other discussion? I've got a motion and a second by Mark on the, Dennis, come on up.
One of the things I would ask is, upon approval, make sure to communicate with the other preschool child cares in the community so they understand. I think there's over a 200 child waiting list right now, but just to keep everybody on the same page, make sure that information gets out right away.
I think Mary Jo's already had some communication, and Jenny.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
All right.
Very good. I know even I talked to some daycare providers this weekend, and they said the same thing. Yeah, that's not a secret how under utilized they are right now. They get a lot of openings, so. Okay. All right, all those in favor of approving the daycare application by the school district signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Okay, that passes 5-0, and guess I'll look, before I ask for adjournment, Mark, thank you again for all your years and also for leading the initiative for the scoreboard. Thank you. Look for a motion for adjournment. So moved, Ann. Second by Jill. Thank you.